Hello and welcome. My name is James Mallory. I'm a software engineering project manager. I've been in the industry for about 25 years, and in this video series I'm trying to get the best bits of my career so far and dilute it for you. It's aimed at the beginner project manager. So if you've just been given your first project and you're just starting out, then hopefully you will be able to use some of this documentation and these video series to help you manage your first software project. So we've already discussed a few other things. We've gone through vision and goals and the KPIs, key performance indicators. So you find those videos in the previous section. Today we're going to be getting into it in a bit more detail. So today we're going to be looking at scope. So bear with me, I'm going to load something up and we're going to jump straight in. Okay, here we go. So it doesn't matter how long you've been in project management, you've more than likely seen this on day one. This is the project management triangle, often called the golden triangle. I'd like to say thank you to Mark Warner for letting us use this image. So the project management golden triangle, the scope triangle, the PM triangle, whatever we call it, is a visual representation of three things. And the reason you would have seen this early in your project management career is because they are the three things that we care about the most as project managers, and for anyone looking after a project, to be quite honest. And those things are time, money, and quality. So we'll talk about quality last because it might be the hardest one to understand. The triangle is a representation of these three things. And for me, the way that I explain the triangle to other people is you only have one place that you can put your finger in this triangle, not two, not three, not four. And it's really good to have a very candid conversation with the person who's, holding maybe the budget for this project to say what is important, or the guiding committee, or whoever the team is that's helping set priorities on a project. It's really good to put your finger on this triangle. The reason being, it will be different on every single project. So project management is, the practice of trying to deliver things on budget, within the schedule set, so timely, within the time that everybody's expecting it, and a certain quality. So quality, I'll just touch on that now, is the perceived quality of the software that you're building. Now, I think we all know that there are many things that have higher or lower senses of quality, and that generally depends on how quickly we do things, how thoroughly we do things or build things or design things. So what we say here is, if we can put our finger on this triangle in some place, it will show us what is important for the client or for the project. It might be that the most important thing within the project is schedule. We just need to get something out of the door into the market as soon as we possibly can. So maybe the most important thing for the project is being first to market before any other competitors release something. Or it may be that there's lots of things out there already, and the most important thing that we're looking at is quality. So the code just has to be absolutely 100% robust. It's not maybe a super fun app that just needs to be first to market, but maybe we're delivering some code for a system that has life support attached to it, so anything to do with maybe the medical industry, or software on aeroplanes, all these kind of things. The most important thing is quality. And then we might have other projects that we're looking after where the most important thing is how cheaply we can do it, because until the software is out there making money, there isn't enough budget to build it as robustly as we want to in the first place. So within this triangle, where we put our finger really depends on a lot of things, a lot of factors, and a lot of opinions of lots of people that are driving the project, including the project team. But generally what we want to see is some kind of mark of where we're going with the scope. It can just be something in the back of your mind as you're talking through things with clients or with the person, the project teams. But if you do have the opportunity of getting a kickoff meeting and you're actually face to face or presenting, it's really good to just get everybody's steer, even if it's just a 2-minute conversation, and literally get someone's finger in that triangle for them to decide what the kind of quality or the kind of speed or the kind of cost that is important for this project. The reason being is that unfortunately we rarely can have it all. We probably don't have all the time in the world and all the money in the world to build the highest quality product in the world. So it's really good to understand what the priorities are and where we sit in this triangle. So I hope that gives a little bit of an overview of what this is. I'm just going to load something else up, and then I'm going to talk you through the documentation that I put together with my projects to help clients understand the detail. Okay, so now we understand what the project scope triangle is. I just want to load this up and show you what the document is that I use to build out the project scope. Now, because in this video series we're not following any kind of project management methodology strictly, we're not following Prince 2 or a PMP guide or any kind of agile methodologies either, Scrum or anything like that. We're not, so we can be a little bit more open with how we use our documentation. And the reason I say that up front is because I try to use this sheet for all projects. Now, some of my projects might be agile, or they might be Prince 2, or they might be whatever the methodologies are there that I'm working with clients on. But the reason I try and use this sheet first is because it has everything that I need on a very, very high level to be able to deliver projects successfully without being bogged down by too much documentation. A sucker for documentation, but only when it's needed and only when it's necessary. So what we can do here, as you can see, this tab is called Scope, and I also have tabs for requirements and specifications, so detailing all the requirements on the project and understanding the technical specifications of those requirements. We can document those separately and in more detail, but the way in which I lay this tab out, this sheet out, is to try and get every single work item. I'm trying to be very specific with my words here. Each item of work has its own row within this sheet, and there's a reason for that hopefully will become quite obvious soon. So what we can do is we can break the project into its stages. If you're not familiar with the stages of software development, the software development life cycle, then I will put a link in the description and hopefully point you in the right direction. We're not going to go through that today. If you don't know what that is, just for the sake of this video, it's essentially stages that each project go through. So what we do in this project scope sheet is we start to define for each row, for each work item, all the information we need to be able to deliver that work item. So it sounds quite simple, and I tried to keep it quite simple in that way. And what we're doing here is we're creating a list of all the items that we need to be able to deliver so that the project is successful. Quite simple, quite straightforward. We already understand what the goals of the project are, and we already understand what the vision is for this project. It's our Acme soaps. So what we can start to do then is define each of the stages with the team and the stakeholders, and we can start to define each of those work items. So if you are a little bit more advanced in your project management career, then first of all, why are you watching this? This is only for beginners, you should be fine. But second of all, you'll probably notice that there's actually a few different concepts happening on this page. We've got the concept of a work breakdown structure, WBS. That's often used in project management to be able to take a project and then compartmentalize it. Is that the right word? Essentially break the big project down into smaller pieces so that we understand the smaller pieces. Something that's used a lot in Agile as well. We use this sort of sizing mechanism. And there's other things that are happening on this page. So we're also looking at a little bit around the, I suppose you could call it a requirements column. And if they're written in the right way, then sometimes you can just use this sheet on its own for requirements. We also have a column here for technical specification. Again, depending on the size of the project, you could maybe use this as the technical specification for each work item, for each row, unless there's a separate piece that's needed. Very much so you could use this for high-level technical specifications if it's quite a lightweight project. And I also bring in the success criteria. So understanding what each work item is, its component technical specification, and a very brief understanding of what the successful delivery of that work item would be. If we can get everything on one row, that helps us clearly understand, articulate, agree, discuss, and successfully deliver each item for each row on the row itself, then I found this to be one of the most successful ways to mark things out. We can obviously then for each row add in an ID. And I've also added in Moscow. So for those of you who are not familiar with Moscow, it's another acronym. And it's essentially, the meaning is basically the definition between something that you must have in your project, something that you should have in your project, and something that you could have in your project. So we call that the Moscow rating. You can use other things like small, medium, or high levels of priority or critical, all these different ways of measuring it. But what we're doing then is really just giving it, giving an understanding to the project team of its level of importance within the project. Some things might absolutely have to happen, so we'll call it a must. And other things, maybe we want to understand what it is, and maybe we should be doing it, but later on in the project, maybe we decide that we don't want to. So it's really good to get an understanding of everything that must happen within a project and everything that could and should happen in a project. And then the last thing here we've got on the sheet is a notes section. So I've kept it quite simple for this this downloadable sheet for everybody, because I do want you to take it and modify it for the project or your company or whatever it is that you're working on. But what I would generally do is I'd have a few more columns in here for lots of different areas, but I've just left it as notes for now. And what would be really good as you're working through this document on your project is to understand anything else, just writing down any other notes about that work item. So it might be that there's dependencies on other systems or software. There might be integrations that are needed. You might have ideas as a team about how to deliver it. As you're writing the description for it, you might already have an idea of what the solution might be or tools that you've used before. And as you're building out this document, you might also understand some restrictions of the client, or restrictions on budget, or restrictions on number of users that are able to use something. Or it's really good just to write as many notes as possible within this. Now we're not going to be touching on tools really as part of this video series. That's going to be something separate. But in future, what you could do then is take each one of these rows, and you've got all the information you need to start putting these rows into tickets in a ticketing system like Atlassian, Jira, or Trello, or whatever it is that you use. But if you can't afford those big systems, or you're not using anything like a free version of Trello, then you can just keep it here. You've got all the information you need for each one of these work items, and essentially each ticket is in its own row. And then the final piece is a estimate. So what we can do is, if we understand the deliverable, the description, the technical specification, any success criteria, and any additional notes for the delivery of that work item, then we should quite soon be able to understand the different roles that are needed, the different types of skill sets that are needed, how much those roles cost per hour, and how many hours it should take to be able to deliver that for each role. And then we can start building up a really good idea of the total scope of the project. The reason I keep referring to this sheet as the scope is because once we understand all the work items, the level of importance, whether they must be in scope or could be in scope, and we understand the size and the cost of each one of these items, then what we've got is everything that we need to be able to deliver on our KPIs, our goals, and our vision. And that will all be in one sheet. So apologies if this sheet is quite detailed. There is quite a lot going on in this one sheet. But the reason I keep it all in one place is because then we have each row is essentially its own deliverable within the project, and that is really, really useful to have and understand in one place. If there is too much going on in this sheet for you, you can always break it out into multiple sheets and other sheets, and in fact I would suggest doing that if the project is quite a large project. Let me just run through one column with you, and I'll run through one column in detail and hopefully it will make sense. So for one work item, one row, we have the ID of the work item. We have the Moscow rating. For this one, it's must have. We have the name of the work item, the description of the work item, which if written well and clearly can also be used as the requirement. We have the technical specification, again, which if written with detail can be used as the full technical specification for the work item. We have the success criteria, which if written with enough detail can be used as the testing and test script for each work item. And then we have the notes, which can act as an understanding of the solution, an understanding of its interfaces and any dependencies. And then I'm going to show you, once we understand the left-hand side of this sheet, then what we can start to do is detail the right-hand side of this sheet, which is the estimate for the project. We can then add a role, designer, as an example. We can add the designer rates that we know. We can ask the designer, very important to ask the person doing the work, what the estimate of work is. That's quite often overlooked. But we can ask the person who is going to be carrying out the work to give an estimate of how long they think it's going to take for them to do it. And then all we've got in here is a total, which is obviously their total hourly rate by their total time, and then that gives us the total for that person on this work item. And then we can copy and paste however many columns we need to be able to add in multiple roles within a work item. And then once we've done that for however many roles that we want, then we can add up the total number of hours. It's quite important to have the total time needed to carry out these tasks. And then we've got the total cost because we know the rates and we know the hours. So then we can work out the total cost. And it's really good to understand the total cost as soon as possible as well, because understanding the total cost of delivering on some of these work items might change their Moscow, or they might change the scope itself. If it's really expensive, they might come out, or things that are perceived to be really expensive turn out to be quite cheap. They might end up being in scope. So it's really good to understand this sheet as early as possible. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. If you've stuck it out this far, well done. Pretty heavy subject, especially when you're new to project management. So thanks for sticking with me, and well done yourself. So we've gone through a lot of things there, but that's essentially the project scope. If you can understand the triangle and you can understand this document, everything else should come quite quickly to you. the advice that I would give is always just keep talking to your team members, collaborate, talk to the client. It might take 2 or 3 or 4 times to go through this document, and you keep adding things in and taking things out and changing it. That's all part of the process, you know, don't lose heart. It will get to a point where everybody understands the scope and everybody's happy with the scope, and then you can move on to the next stages. So well done so far. I hope this is helping. There'll be a download for this file in the description and on the website. And if anybody has any questions, then please just reach out in whatever way you can, and I'll hopefully either build a video around it or answer your questions personally. So that's it for now. Until the next video, thank you very much.